Welcome to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders, owners, and professionals are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Hear from industry experts on everything from marketing, leadership, financing, and more. Brought to you by Haven, a co-working space where you can connect, create, and get stuff done.
Hi, Gina Palcio of Level 2 Accounting. We are very excited to have you. We are going to be talking today about how and why to automate your accounting. But first, Gina, welcome. And we'd love to hear a little bit about your background, how you came into be this guru of accounting and working with small businesses. So welcome, and tell us a little bit about you and your business.
Well, first of all, I come from an entrepreneurial small business family. That's the way I was raised. My dad's a contractor and my mom was his bookkeeper all those years. It was a family business. So that kind of, I think when you are raised in that kind of environment, that runs in your blood. So one of my goals in life had always been to work for myself. And I kind of fell into accounting. It wasn't something that was my first choice, but I discovered that I really liked it. And so I started doing more education for it. And I worked full-time as a bookkeeper with a small family corporation for about 5 years. And then after that, I started my own business doing bookkeeping and then gradually more consulting and accounting work. So I love working with very small businesses in particular because probably that's what I was raised with. So I enjoy seeing families and individuals be successful and be independent.
Fantastic. So one of the, I always like to know somebody's coming to you, a new client or potential client, or you've now worked with lots of small businesses. Walk us through, Gina, like the 3, 5, whatever, like what are the main problems or things people don't know that you wish they did or you'd love to tell them about before they start working with you or as they're getting started? Like what are those big pain points that you love to educate people on?
Well, unfortunately, being in business requires a lot of paperwork. There's just no way around that. There's a lot of government regulation, whether it be in licensing, getting your state registrations, if your sales tax, payroll. And if you don't take care of those up front, there can be pretty serious consequences. So knowing what you need to know to be legally in business is really, really important. And then that will establish much of how you will be doing your accounting, because different entity types have different needs for accounting. And always my first question when I'm working with a new client is, what kind of business are you? Are you S Corp? Are you C Corp? Are you a partnership? Are you an LLC? Because that defines part of the accounting right there.
Oh, you've just reminded me. I have some state things that I need to file that I forgot about. So your job here is done. What are the other, in terms of, so one gets their paperwork in order and they know what kind of business they are. What's the next challenge for them that you see that you sometimes either have to help them undo or get them set up or, think about, especially if they are not accounting minded, right? Like I have the visions of the people with tons of receipts, like, what do I do now?
There's an urban myth out there and it's been propagated by some of the software companies, that you don't need professionals to keep your books, that you don't really need an accountant, you don't really need a bookkeeper, that you can just install the software or sign up for it and voila, everything will happen. And unfortunately, the software is just a tool. You need to know how to use it. And if you put garbage in, you get garbage out. So a lot of business owners spend a lot of time doing their books at the beginning, and it has to be redone because it wasn't set up properly in the first place. Once it's set up properly, once there's been a little bit of training, understanding of the processes, then many business owners can take it from there and do a good portion of the work themselves. But without the proper consultation, without the proper setup, it may be that they waste all their effort and someone else professional has to come in and redo the whole thing at the end of the year. They might as well have paid them up front to get it done right in the first place. So investing a little time and money in the proper setup, in the proper training, so that you get out of the system what you are putting in is really, really important and saves a lot of frustration. On the flip side, there are others that don't worry about the paperwork and the bookkeeping and they keep their little shoebox. And at the end of the year, it's like, you know what? I think this business is actually going to work. So now I need to figure out what to do with all this because I think I need to file taxes. And again, they've been running blind for a whole year. They have no idea if they made a profit. They have no idea if they should have made estimated payments. They perhaps have not been filing sales tax or other things that they should have done. Maybe they didn't know how to properly fill out their property tax valuations. There's so many things that they don't have the information for in order to function. This last year, with what was going on with the PPP loans and other business stimulus, you needed your information available. You couldn't just dump a shoebox out in front of the bank and say, this is what I made. So having this information is really essential, but you do need the proper guidance to make sure that it's the right information.
So helpful. So we're going to make the assumption now a business owner is getting their bookkeeping in place, has some sort of tool, be it we're going to assume it's, QuickBooks or something. There's some sort of computerized system that's not just an Excel spreadsheet, right? So people if we're getting to that point, one of the questions I always want to know is, before we can talk about automation, you got to set up a system. So in setting up your system, how do people decide, right? Are they in the cloud? Are they, on a server? Are they, working from their phone? Could you walk us through a couple of different options or scenarios so people know what they should be considering?
Sure. Well, 10 years ago, pretty much everyone went QuickBooks Desktop. That's what pretty much your choice was. If you had a Mac, you were kind of at a disadvantage because the Mac versions didn't work very well. They weren't very compatible with the others, but pretty much if it was PC, in fact, some of my clients would go out and get PCs just so they could run their accounting software. There were some other options, but Intuit was the big name. With that, you could install it on a server, you could install it on a local computer. If you're willing to pay for the extra licenses, you could have multiple users, but it pretty much lived one place. And moving it or having other people to access it would require a little bit more of a clunky process. There are some tools out there for either sharing the file, sharing screens, things like that. But pretty much my clients that use QuickBooks Desktop, I would have to make regular visits to them to update their books. The disadvantage of that, although QuickBooks Desktop is a very full-featured program and pretty much can do anything you need, is that you don't have up-to-date books if you don't have a full-time bookkeeper. Larger companies have someone there that is there every day who enters in the information as it happens. So anytime that you need a report, the information is up to date. If you only have a bookkeeper coming in and really making sure that everything's correct, maybe once or twice a month or once a quarter, when you run your reports, you don't know if they're good. And that is a disadvantage. I'd say access is probably the biggest disadvantage. But the second disadvantage that the desktop programs now have is that they're much harder to integrate to third-party programs. Intuit's product of QuickBooks is pretty much a one-size-fits-all. And it does everything pretty well, but it doesn't do anything specific really well. So if you want something that is industry specific or for your particular business, the size of business you have, or into your particular area, you just had to kind of make do with what the options were. But now that many of us have moved to the cloud accounting softwares are much easier to integrate because the access is much easier. So if you want to use your accounting software as just the hub, then you can bring in a payroll service, you can bring in a time tracking system, you can bring in an invoicing or a job management system that is unique and special for your business. And then as your business grows, you can continue to add on pieces or go to more sophisticated software. In fact, something I really like about a lot of the add-ons now, it used to be there was low-level software and there was high-level software, and high-level software was very expensive. So businesses would start with the low-level software, and then as they grew, suddenly they couldn't use that anymore. They needed the high level, but there was this huge learning curve. There was a huge expense jumping to it, and also the time that was needed to convert all their information from the one system to the new system. But most apps now, the same app has different levels of usage that basically, as you use more of it, you pay more. So you can use the completely professional model at a very economical price when you're starting out. And then as your needs grow, you pay more for it. And you don't have any conversion, you don't have any learning curve, and you've gotten to use the professional best software from the very beginning. So there are a lot of benefits of being in the cloud and being able to integrate with not only your accounting software, but other softwares that work together with it. And that avoids a lot of duplication. It allows you to have better quality information because you're using something that is uniquely built for your particular industry or your particular business.
Got it. And I really appreciate and I hadn't thought about that, the ability to grow easier as opposed to having these kind of truncated, okay, I've reached this level, time to do something else with, my business. So we're getting in, we're making assumptions that we've gotten some sort of computerized accounting software, whether it's in the cloud or the system. Gina, do you help like in terms of these systems or getting actually to automating your accounting, right? Like, there's still the mentality of, it's monthly or it's weekly or it's invoice time, right? And you have to go sit down and do all this stuff. Give us some examples or things or systems you like to set up for your clients, in terms of automating accounting and kind of making it work for you and taking it out of that admin part of our brains and businesses.
Right. Well, the very first thing I would consider is making sure that your accounting system can link with your bank feeds, because having information coming and going between the systems, being able to have that general bank information coming into your accounting system every day can eliminate a lot of work right up front, because there's certain expenses that they are what they are, and there's no need to go and find a document to match to it. Maybe your workman's comp is being billed according to how much payroll you use, and each week it bills you exactly what that was. It comes through your feed at the time and it's immediately paid. You can have an actual bank rule that recognizes what it is, and all you have to do is approve it. So It's to manually enter, but the date, the amount, all of that is just going to happen. So I would say bank feeds are the first thing. If you have payroll, the second thing is having payroll that can sync with your accounting software. I don't necessarily like having the payroll built into the software, which is one of the options with a lot of the Intuit products. That can be a little difficult when you need to correct it. If you get anything wrong, it's all tied up in your software and you have a problem. But when you have an independent payroll service that syncs the information after the fact right into your accounting system, that saves a lot of time, because payroll entries are some of the hardest entries to make and some of the hardest ones to get right, because a typical payroll entry has 6 or 7 lines. You've got all the different taxes and the liabilities and this and that. And if it just comes into your system automatically, you don't have to deal with it. All you have to do is match it to the feed. So that's a huge time saver, and also very, very important for the accuracy. So I would say that is like the basics. Then things like time tracking. You need time tracking for your payroll. You may need time tracking for actually invoicing clients.
Right.
Even if you're not using an hourly type format for your invoicing, maybe you're doing contracts or value-based type invoicing, understanding your true cost is really important. And one of those costs is your time. Sometimes people are tracking their employees' time, but what about your own time? How much time are you really spending in your business? At the end of the year, if you made X amount of money, if you divided that by how many hours you worked, what is your hourly rate? Are you getting paid more or less than your employees? And sometimes the answer is quite a bit less. And if that's the case, maybe that gives you the justification to charge more. Because sometimes we undercut ourselves. It's like, no. It's like, I can't say that per hour. But when we're business owners, that hourly rate, that includes our insurance, our training, so many other things that a regular employee doesn't have to deal with. So understanding our true cost in time is really important when we're costing out jobs now and in the future. I think those are the main areas that are important in automation, but then we can take things to another level with things like document reading. So instead of actually having to enter our bills as they come in, there are great programs that can actually scan the document and pretty much import the information right into the accounting system and just require some approvals. If we take our automation to a new level, we become, instead of data entry, we become more, shall we say, the shepherds, where the shepherdesses, we're pushing the information around, we're analyzing it, we're approving it, but we're not actually doing the entry. And that makes it actually much more accurate because there's no transpositions of numbers. There's no, it's like the amount and the date are coming in correct. There are other pieces. Okay, how do I want to classify this? What memos are important? How will we use this information? Those are the decisions that we're going to want to make. But we don't need to do the data entry because it's already been done by someone else. The wire, the bank enters it, the vendor enters it, the customer enters it. Why do we just keep on repeating the process when it's already digitally available? Yeah. So there are a lot of ways to automate the whole system.
I love the idea of the shepherding because I do find personally, and I myself have very simple accounting, but I do find that the auto categorizations are not the most reliable, even if you set up rules and all of those things. But just shifting the gear of shifting your mindset from input to, either shepherd, or I kind of look at it as, either the reviewer or the recon person, right? Like you're just going in to make sure everything kind of looks okay. But again, that you're not having to type in every single check or every single bit of information. And in terms of automation and security, or in terms of automation and backing up, the worst nightmare would be to lose everything, right? Mm-hmm. What is that? Was that part of your automation recommendations or part of your system setup in terms of protecting this very valuable asset of a small business?
That's actually one of the reasons that I highly recommend the cloud, because the companies that are hosting your software, whether it be Intuit or my personal preference is Xero, Xero. They have high sophistication, bank level security. They have servers that are being monitored by professional IT people. I don't have those kind of, if I had a server here, I'd have to have an IT person come in and take care of it. I have no idea how to handle those kind of things. So letting the professionals handle the security of the file and the integrity of the file takes that away from me. If my computer crashes, I don't care. It's like I've stopped buying fancy computers because this computer dies. I open up the next one and I'm ready to log on. I don't have that oh no moment of where's that file? When's the last time I backed it up? Do I have 2 hours of work to recreate, or do I have 20 hours of work to recreate? All that is constantly being taken care of. Now, the flip side is security of access, and that really depends much on the user. One of the things I really like about Xero is that they have unlimited users. QuickBooks products have a certain number of users that are allowed. And that tends, when you have software that makes you pay by user, the tendency is to share usernames. And anytime you do that, then that information is a bit more public because you're maybe 2 or 3 people to decide that they're going to use the same user. They're sharing the passwords around. You don't have a history anymore of who did what. It's just, what user did it, but you don't know who the user is. So when you have the historical information, you can pick up on even people who, and it's like, I hope that my clients don't have fraud happen, although it can. But oftentimes you have business owners or employees that don't understand what they're doing. And knowing who is making the mistake so that we know who to train so it doesn't keep happening is really, really important. When I see something and needs corrected, the first thing I do is look, who did that? Was it me? Could be. It's like, was it one of my staff people?
Or was it one of those silly owners who didn't know what they were doing?
Yeah. We need to know that so we know who we need. We're not just fixing this, we're fixing a pattern so that we can explain to them, okay, the reason we don't do it this way is because this would be the consequences. So this is how we're going to handle it in the future. So having that audit trail is really, really important, not only for training and for correction, or sometimes to verify, is this real information or not? It's like, okay, this is a little strange, but the person that did it does know what they're doing. So let me ask them why they did it that way. But then we also have the flip side, and this is something that has really, really become crucial this last year. There has never been more fraud and hacking. It's been horrible this last year. I've seen a lot of attempts in the case of my own clients, of people who have tried to steal very large amounts of money, or have tried to access systems. So having dual factor authentication of the files, having secure passwords, those are basic office procedures that need put in place. And that's something that I am always reminding my clients of. Okay, your accounting system has sensitive information in it. Your payroll system has sensitive information in it. It has to be protected. So having secure sign-ins and having everyone trackable is really, really important. And that's something that sometimes is actually easier on the cloud than with desktop. It just depends on the office culture. It's like, I hate it when people save their passwords to their computer. It's like, I don't know why computers even offer that. They shouldn't.
Yeah. Well, and I've heard the argument made that there's a reason not to be in the cloud because it's more secure, right? If it's in a contained environment. And
our information is already in the cloud. It's like the banks, if banks can be hacked, they've got your information.
Right.
So it's more important, I think, that we can be in real time watching things than to be oblivious to what's going on. A client of mine who used to be extremely, extremely scared of being in the cloud, he wouldn't even do online banking. I kept telling him, it's like, the bank's got your information there, whether you want to or not. His family was involved in that Blue Cross Blue Shield hack that turned into an IRS hack that turned it's like one of his kids ended up being a veteran of the foreign wars before it was over. It's like, it was really, really messy. It was nothing he did. It wasn't something he never signed into, but that information is out there. But it's more important for us to know what's going on with our information. So if you log into your bank every day and something strange is happening, you know immediately, versus if you're only receiving your bank statements and once checking your account, by the time that they're done with you, it's too late to do anything. So I think that being proactive and keeping on top of your numbers, and that's something I see a lot, is that people don't even notice what's going on in their accounts because they're not up to date on things. They don't notice that they forgot to deposit a check until 6 months later. They don't notice that, it's like a transfer happened that was fraudulent because they're simply not looking, and they're not dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's they should in their accounting. They're not reconciling.
Yeah, such good points. I like how you're gently poking holes in theories and assumptions about what we think about accounting and approaches to accounting, and not being afraid of your numbers, staying on top of it. The cloud is as safe as possible, setting up systems. And of course, people can't do everything. Small business owners are really busy wearing a lot of hats. So the perfect segue into, Gina, how would somebody, work with you, or how do they reach you? Thank you for all this great advice. What's the best way for people to connect and learn more about you and Level and True Accounting?
Well, my website, levelandtrueaccounting.com. I have a contact page on that where there's a nice little interview. You can fill out basic information about your business to give me an idea of what services you're interested in. And that's it. I think a conversation is the first place to start. On the website, I have quite a bit of information about the services we provide, about some of the apps that we support, some general ideas of what you need to know about accounting, and also have a pretty good blog going. So there's some nice articles that are geared towards small businesses. And once we have that conversation, we can determine, what are your pain points? Where are you right now? Do you have a healthy system and you just want to maintain it? Do you have a system that needs desperate help? And if so, what can we do? What kind of conversion options do you have? But really, I think the important thing is to find out what your pain points are and find out what your options are. And from then you can make a decision, what are you capable of doing and what you want to do? Because some people, accounting is something just like art. It's like either you're an artist or you're not an artist. I mean, I admire artists. I can doodle, but don't ask me to do the same doodle twice. I admire what a great artist can do, and I respect that. And likewise, accounting, it takes a certain mindset to do it well. And there are people who can do it but hate it. And there are people who just simply can't do it. Either case, it's not going to be done well because you're either going to procrastinate or you're going to do it wrong. So knowing what your tolerance level is and how much time you have to dedicate to it, and then what part you should outsource to a professional who can do it perhaps in twice the time that you could. So it's important to know how you're going to use their time. I like my clients to be involved in the process because they understand their business. It's very hard for me to invoice for my clients because I don't understand what they're selling. But I can provide support to make sure that invoicing is being handled correctly for sales taxes, how it wants to be categorized behind the scenes, how to reconcile the payments, maybe even helping them set up payment systems and how they want to send the invoices. So there's a lot of behind the scenes support that I can provide. And then the end, reconciling, the reporting, those kind of things, I tend to handle more of, while my clients tend to do a lot of the raw data entry because they're on site, they have that information, and they're starting the process. So it's just finding a good collaboration. And that collaboration should also include their tax preparer, if they're using a CPA or something like that. We need to understand what information do they want and how do they want that presented, because you're paying the accountants a lot of money.
Right.
So you want to make sure that you're using their time wisely and not just frustrating them and making them charge you a paying tax.
No, it's so true. And I think the other thing we didn't even talk about, but is, some people assume because they have a bookkeeper, they don't need an accountant for taxes, right? And those are not, sometimes they're similar, but those are not the same skill sets and not the same people typically. And I think that's also an aha for somebody's like, oh, my accountant will handle it. And there's a big difference between an accountant and a bookkeeper or, an accounting consultant as you are, or even a systems person. So that's hugely, hugely, hugely important. And Gina, we'll close that thing. Hopefully, we'll see you soon in the Haven offices, and you can continue to share your wonderful advice and wisdom with the rest of the Haven community in person and virtually. So thank you for being a part of the Haven Hubcast today, and we look forward to hopefully all be having better systems, automation, smoother accounting, and I'm going to go off and deal with my state issues you've just reminded me of. Anyway,
yes.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not going to say any more in case they come after me. Anyway, Gina, thank you very much for your time. Gina Palcio of Level and True Accounting. We are members of the Haven community and look forward to helping small businesses grow and succeed.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Haven Hubcast, a place to learn what business leaders and owners are doing to navigate and grow in today's market. Please leave a review on Apple Podcasts and subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Haven is a co-working space and virtual community located in the heart of Fairfield County, Connecticut. Haven is a hub for business owners and professionals to connect, create, and get stuff done. Find out more about the Haven community online at haven.com. That's HAYVN.com. Haven Hubcast is produced by Sound Advice Strategies.